Friendships built over decades can crumble in seconds, and sometimes, it's over something as trivial as a spilled drink. Sam sat on the edge of the couch, his shoulders hunched forward as though carrying the weight of something far heavier than the look of worry etched on his face. He stared at his hands, fingers intertwining and fidgeting nervously. I let the silence linger, knowing it would draw him out more effectively than any prompt. "I don't even know where to start," he finally muttered, his voice low, almost embarrassed. "I feel stupid. It's just, Jason and I, we've been friends since we were kids. We went through everything together. And now." His voice cracked, but he swallowed hard, shaking his head. "And now you're here, wondering how it got to this point," I offered gently. He nodded, glancing up briefly before his eyes returned to his hands. "It's over something so stupid, I can't even believe I'm saying it out loud. A spilled drink. At a party." I gestured for him to continue. "It was a few weeks ago. I knocked my drink over, and it got on Jason's new shirt. I apologized, right away, but he was mad. Really mad. He made this face, said something like, 'Seriously?' And I laughed. I didn't mean to, it just happened. I thought it'd lighten the mood, but he looked even angrier. So I apologized again, but..." He paused, taking a deep breath. "After that, he just shut down. He barely talked to me for the rest of the night, and I figured he just needed to cool off. But now it's been weeks. He doesn't answer my texts. He ignores me in group chats. It's like I don't even exist to him anymore." The frustration in his voice was palpable, but there was something else there too, a tremor of vulnerability, the kind that came from the fear of losing something irreplaceable. "What's that silence been like for you?" I asked. He scoffed bitterly. "Awful. It's like..." I keep replaying that moment in my head, wondering what I could have done differently. I apologized. Twice. I didn't mean to laugh. I wasn't trying to brush it off, I swear. But he's acting like I betrayed him or something. And it hurts, you know. We've been through so much together. How can one little thing undo all of that? The room was quiet for a moment as I let his words settle. Then I leaned forward slightly. "Sometimes, Sam, it's not just about the moment itself. It's about what that moment symbolizes to someone else. Have you ever thought about what Jason might have felt, beyond the surface of the situation?" Sam blinked, caught off guard. He shook his head slowly. "I mean, no. I figured he was just mad about the shirt. But I don't get it. It's just a shirt. To you, maybe. But people often carry feelings they haven't voiced, even with those they're closest to. That moment might have been the spark, but the fire could have been building for a while." He frowned, his brow furrowing deeply. "You think he's been holding something against me all this time? Without saying anything? It's a possibility worth considering. But for now, I want you to focus on what you can control. You miss Jason, and you want to mend this friendship. How can you approach him in a way that shows you value him, not just as someone you want back, but as someone whose feelings matter?" Sam sighed, leaning back against the couch. "I don't know. I've tried texting him, but it's like shouting into a void. He doesn't answer. And now I'm scared that if I push too hard, it'll just make things worse." "That's an understandable fear," I said. "But silence can build walls just as effectively as words. If Jason doesn't respond to texts, perhaps a different approach might help. What about speaking to him in person, when the timing feels right?" He nodded slowly, though his face still held doubt. "I guess I could try. But what if he doesn't want to hear me out? What if it's already too late?" "It's never too late to try, Sam. And remember, this isn't just about fixing things. It's about understanding each other. Even if Jason doesn't respond the way you hope, you'll have done your part to show him that his friendship means something to you." Sam stayed quiet, mulling over my words. Then he looked up, a glimmer of determination breaking through the cloud of worry in his eyes. Okay. I'll talk to him. I don't want to lose him over something like this. Good, I said softly. When you do, focus on listening as much as talking. Sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do is give someone the space to tell their side of the story. As our session wrapped up, I reflected on how fragile relationships can be, even the ones that seem indestructible. And to anyone listening right now, I'd love to know, have you ever been in a situation where a small misunderstanding spiraled into something much bigger? How did you handle it? Feel free to share your story below, I'd love to hear from you. The weeks of silence weighed on Sam like a stone. Each passing day brought another pang of doubt, and he felt the growing gap between himself and Jason like a chasm that might never be crossed again. He sat across from me, his voice quieter than before, as though the words themselves carried the burden of his guilt. I've tried everything I can think of, he began, his hands resting motionless on his knees. I sent him a message, asking if we could talk. Nothing. Then I tried joking about the party, just to see if that would break the ice. Still nothing. It's like I don't exist to him anymore. What did it feel like, not getting a response? He exhaled, the sound heavy. Like screaming into a void. I keep thinking, if he cared as much as I thought he did, wouldn't he at least give me a chance to explain? Or maybe this just proves I wasn't as important to him as I thought. I let the silence stretch between us, waiting until the weight of his words settled. It's natural to wonder about that when someone pulls away. But relationships, especially the ones we value most, aren't always as clear-cut as we'd like them to be. Have you considered that Jason might be grappling with his own feelings about this? Sam shrugged, his eyes fixed on the floor. I guess. I was upset, why not just say it? Why let this thing fester until it feels so much bigger than it ever needed to be? Because people don't always know how to express their feelings, even to those they're closest to. Jason might not even fully understand why he's been distant. But that doesn't mean he's stopped valuing your friendship. Sam's jaw tightened, and I could see the battle between his frustration and the hope he still clung to. I hate this. I hate not knowing where we stand. That uncertainty is painful, especially when it's with someone who's been such a big part of your life. But silence is just a barrier, Sam. It doesn't have to be permanent. If you had the chance to speak to Jason face to face, what's the one thing you'd want him to know? His brow furrowed as he considered the question. That I'm sorry. Not just for what happened at the party, but for not realizing sooner how much it hurt him. And that I miss him. I miss my best friend. The vulnerability in his voice struck a chord, and I leaned forward slightly. That's an important place to start. But remember, it's not just about what you want to say, it's about creating space for Jason to tell you how he feels. That's where real healing begins. Sam nodded, though his expression remained uncertain. I just don't know if he'll listen. What if he's already decided I'm not worth it? You won't know until you try. And even if he's reluctant at first, your willingness to reach out and acknowledge his feelings could be the key to opening that door again. He sat in silence for a long moment, then finally looked up. Okay. I'll try. I don't know when or how, but I'll try. There was a flicker of determination in his eyes, and I saw the first spark of hope beginning to take root. Relationships, I thought, are rarely simple. But they're also rarely beyond repair, if both people are willing to meet in the middle. If you've ever been in a situation where a misunderstanding threatened to pull you apart from someone you care about, I'd love to hear how you handled it. What worked for you? And what didn't? Feel free to share your thoughts below. Every story helps someone else feel less alone. The moment Sam saw Jason across the room at their mutual friends' gathering, his stomach sank. Jason was talking to someone else, laughing, his posture relaxed, as though nothing was wrong. But when their eyes met, a flicker of discomfort passed over Jason's face. It was brief, almost imperceptible, but Sam caught it. It was enough to remind him that things weren't fine, not by a long shot. Sam hesitated, gripping the edge of the counter where he stood, trying to summon the courage to approach. His mind raced with every worst-case scenario, but he knew this was the moment. If he didn't try now, he might never get the chance again. He crossed the room, weaving through clusters of friends, his heart pounding harder with each step. Jason noticed him coming, his smile fading slightly as he braced himself. By the time Sam stopped in front of him, the air between them was thick with unspoken tension. "Hey," Sam started, his voice steady despite the knot in his throat. "Can we talk?" Jason's jaw tightened, and for a second, it looked like he might refuse. Then he nodded and gestured toward the quieter corner of the room. They walked in silence, the noise of the party fading behind them. When they stopped, Jason leaned against the wall, arms crossed, waiting for Sam to speak. "Look, I don't even know where to begin," Sam admitted, running a hand through his hair. "But I can't keep pretending everything's okay when it's not. I know you're upset with me, and I know I screwed up. I need to understand what's really going on. Why have you been shutting me out?" Jason's gaze dropped to the floor, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Sam thought he might stay silent. Then Jason let out a breath and met Sam's eyes. "You don't get it," Jason said, his voice low. "It wasn't just about the drink. It was the way you handled it. You laughed, Sam. Like it didn't matter. Like I didn't matter." Sam's stomach twisted. "I wasn't laughing at you. I swear, I thought it would lighten the mood. I didn't mean to make it worse." "Yeah, well, it didn't feel that way," Jason shot back. "I was already having a rough week. That night was supposed to be fun, and then you. I don't know. It just felt like you didn't care how I felt. And when I walked away, you didn't even follow me or ask if I was okay. You just let it slide." Sam was stunned. Spent weeks agonizing over what he'd done, but he hadn't realized how deeply it had affected Jason. "You're right," Sam said quietly. "I should have checked on you. I should have done more than just apologize and assume it was fine. I didn't think about what you were feeling in that moment, and I hate that I made you feel like you didn't matter. That's the last thing I ever wanted." Jason looked away, his jaw working as he processed Sam's words. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Jason's shoulders relaxed slightly, and the tension in his face softened. "I guess I could have handled it better too," Jason admitted. "I let it build up instead of just telling you how I felt. But it's hard, you know. It's hard to tell your best friend that something they did hurt you." Sam nodded. "It is. But I need you to tell me. I need us to be able to talk about this kind of stuff. I don't want to lose what we have over something like this." Jason's lips curved into a faint smile. "Me neither. I missed you, man. But next time, maybe think before you laugh at my expense." Sam chuckled, the sound lighter than it had been in weeks. "Deal. And next time, tell me when I'm being an idiot instead of freezing me out for a month." Jason laughed too, and for the first time in weeks, the knot in Sam's chest began to loosen. They spent the rest of the party catching up, the rift between them slowly mending with every shared joke and smile. "Friendships are rarely perfect," I thought as I watched them rejoin the group. "But with the right mix of vulnerability, accountability, and forgiveness, even the deepest wounds can heal." To anyone listening, what do you think about handling tough conversations with close friends? Have you ever avoided a difficult talk, only to regret it later? Drop a comment below, I'd love to hear how you navigated it. The next few days felt lighter for Sam. The weight he'd been carrying for weeks had started to lift, and for the first time in a long while, he could look at Jason's name in the group chat without a pang of anxiety. It wasn't perfect, there were still moments of awkwardness between them, remnants of the tension that had built up, but it was a start. When Sam sat across from me again, his demeanor had changed. There was a quiet optimism in his expression, tempered by the lessons he'd learned. We talked for hours after the party, he began, his hands resting loosely on his knees. It wasn't just about the shirt or the party. We ended up talking about everything, stuff I didn't even realize had been bothering him. Turns out, there were other little things I'd done that rubbed him the wrong way. Things I hadn't noticed or thought weren't a big deal. I waited, sensing there was more he needed to say. And he admitted he'd been holding on to them instead of just telling me, Sam continued. It's crazy. We've been friends for so long, and I thought we had this unspoken understanding. Like, we didn't need to talk about that stuff because we just got each other. But I guess no friendship is that simple. Unspoken understanding can only go so far, I said. Even the closest relationships need communication to thrive. What did you learn from that conversation? Sam leaned back, running a hand through his hair. A lot. First, I learned that I'm not as great a friend as I thought I was. I mean, I try, but I didn't realize how much I'd taken our friendship for granted. Like, I figured Jason would just know I care about him, no matter what. But he needed to hear it, you know. And I wasn't giving him that. He paused, his gaze distant for a moment, as though replaying the conversation in his mind. And I learned that he doesn't always know how to say what he's feeling. He said it's hard for him to bring stuff up because he doesn't want to come off as dramatic or needy. So instead, he just bottles it up, which makes it worse. How did you respond to that? I asked. I told him I want him to tell me. Even if it's hard, even if it feels weird. I'd rather have an uncomfortable conversation than lose him over something that could have been fixed. And I promised to listen. Really listen, instead of just brushing things off or trying to fix them right away. There was a quiet conviction in his voice, the kind that comes from someone who has genuinely reflected on their mistakes and wants to do better. It sounds like you both came away from this with a deeper understanding of each other, I said. Sam nodded. We did. And we agreed to make some changes. Like, if something's bothering one of us, we'll say it. No more guessing games or silent treatments. And we're gonna check in more often, not just when there's a problem, but just to stay connected. We realized we've both been so busy with our own lives that we weren't putting enough time into the friendship. He hesitated, then added, I don't think I realized how much I need him until I almost lost him. There was a moment of silence as he let those words sink in, and I could see how much this experience had affected him. Friendships are like any other relationship, I said. They require effort, communication, and understanding. But the fact that you and Jason were both willing to do the work to repair this shows how much you value each other. That's what matters most. Sam smiled, the tension that had marked his earlier sessions now replaced with a quiet sense of peace. Yeah. I think we're gonna be okay. As he left, I reflected on how often we underestimate the importance of communication in our closest relationships. Misunderstandings and unspoken feelings can create walls that seem insurmountable, but with honesty and vulnerability, those walls can come down. To those listening, have you ever had a friendship go through a rough patch that taught you something valuable? How did you work through it? I'd love to hear your experiences. Drop a comment below and let's keep the conversation going. When I saw Sam again a week later, he seemed lighter, not just in the way he walked into the room but in the way he spoke. It wasn't that the challenges of the past few weeks had disappeared, but rather that he'd gained something far more important, clarity. We're good now, he began, settling into the chair across from me. Better than we've been in years, honestly. And it's not just because we made up. It's because we finally talked about things we've been avoiding for so long. He paused, letting the thought settle before continuing. I didn't realize how much we were both holding back. I guess when you've been friends with someone for as long as we have, you just assume you know everything about them. But people change. Life happens. And if you're not keeping up, it's easy to drift apart, even without meaning to. What do you think was the biggest shift for you and Jason? I asked. Sam thought for a moment, his expression serious. We stopped assuming. I think that's what it comes down to. We stopped assuming the other person knew how we felt, or what we needed, or why we acted the way we did. Instead, we started asking. And listening. He leaned forward slightly, his voice growing softer. It wasn't just about fixing what happened at the party. That was just the surface. But when we talked, really talked, I learned things about him that I'd never known before. Like how he's been feeling left out lately because I've been so busy with work. And how he sometimes feels like he can't tell me when something's bothering him because he doesn't want to make it awkward. He sighed, a mixture of regret and relief. I don't know why I never noticed that before. Maybe I just got too comfortable. Or maybe I just didn't think he'd ever feel that way about me. I nodded, sensing the depth of his reflection. It sounds like this experience brought a lot of things to light for both of you. Do you feel like it's changed how you see your friendship? Completely, Sam said without hesitation. I mean, I always knew Jason was important to me, but I don't think I realized how much until I almost lost him. And now, I'm not taking that for granted anymore. We're both making more of an effort. Like, we've been checking in with each other more, even about little things. It's weird, it's such a small change, but it makes a big difference. He sat back, a faint smile tugging at his lips. I think I've learned more about being a good friend in the past month than I have in the past 10 years. And what does being a good friend mean to you now? I asked. Sam tilted his head, considering the question. It means showing up. Not just physically, but emotionally. It means paying attention, even to the stuff that's not said out loud. And it means being willing to have hard conversations, even when it's uncomfortable. Because the alternative? It's not worth it. For a moment, we sat in silence, the weight of his words settling between us. Then Sam let out a soft laugh, shaking his head. I guess I should be thanking Jason for this. I mean, who knew a spilled drink could teach me so much? I smiled, sensing the genuine gratitude behind his humor. Sometimes, it's the small things that reveal the biggest truths. The key is being open to learning from them. As Sam left that day, I felt a quiet satisfaction knowing he'd not only repaired his friendship but also deepened it in a way that would likely sustain them for years to come. For those of you listening, friendships are some of the most rewarding, and challenging, relationships we have. They require effort, understanding, and sometimes even forgiveness. Have you ever experienced a moment that changed how you view your friendships? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let's keep the conversation going.